What's going on, everybody? It's Jay here from Nerd Takes, and today I wanted to give you my take on the Knuckles series from Paramount Plus. So, Paramount released their new show Knuckles, which is a spin off of the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. It's a pretty quick watch with 6 episodes that are roughly 30 minutes apiece, give or take a few minutes. Now, when I go to review movies or shows, I like to use a bit of a scaling system. And what I mean by that is I don't judge a blockbuster style movie the same way that I judge an Oscar movie. And I don't judge a family friendly TV show the same way I judge, say, an HBO primetime series. I think it would be unfair to hold certain things to standards that they obviously aren't trying to meet. I always say in life, if you try to judge a rock by its ability to be a tree, it's going to fail every time. But if you judge it by its ability to be a rock, it's going to do pretty well. With that said, this show is very silly, but it does seem like it wants to be that way. It's not one that's trying to take itself very seriously, which does fit in with the vibe of the Sonic movies. It's a family friendly show that is definitely intended for a younger audience, but it's also one that wants to appeal to the adults of a family that maybe grew up enjoying Sonic and characters like Knuckles. So I think the attempt was to create a show that the whole family can watch and potentially enjoy. So I suppose I'll start with the story itself. It's very nonsensical and random, but it does feel like it wants to be that way. The plot is essentially that Knuckles is a warrior who's struggling to find a place in the world now that he has no battle to fight. And he takes on an apprentice who's a guy that's a bit lost in terms of finding himself and his confidence. So together they make an odd pairing who shares the common goal of finding their place in the world. There's really not much to the plot in terms of complexity, structure, or even connective happenings, really. The characters outside of Knuckles aren't really that interesting. Much like the Sonic movies, specifically the second one, there's a lot going on with human characters that just isn't all that entertaining. I did mostly enjoy the times that the show focused on Knuckles himself. As somebody who grew up with Sonic and Knuckles and Tails and all those characters in the games, it's pretty fun to see them in a live action format with these now TV shows and obviously the movies that came before them. And I will say that Idris Elba is honestly pretty funny as Knuckles. I think most of the humor that I did enjoy came from him in that role, but the rest of the characters are just a bit too over the top for me. The character Wade, for example, who's on the journey with Knuckles, is constantly delivering jokes that really didn't land for me, but at the same time, I do believe that that's where the show is intended for the family friendly audience. The villains are just villains for the sake of having an antagonist to go against Knuckles. And honestly, the rest of the characters are all pretty one dimensional and just a bit too over the top. And in some cases, they're not really acted very well. I did like the animation of Knuckles. I thought it looked pretty good in terms of character design. That's one thing that I really commend the Sonic universe for. Ever since the creators of the first movie took the feedback of fans from the original look of Sonic and changed him to look a lot more accurate to the games, they've done equally as good of a job with designing both Knuckles and Tails. Two other aspects that I think were done pretty well was the music choice. I think they did a great job at selecting music for the show, and it actually helped lead into the second thing that I thought they did well, which was the nostalgia. There's a good amount of nostalgia for people who grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and it was a pretty fun trip down memory lane. Overall, I can't say that it was a particularly good show, but it was a fun little watch for the most part. And I think it's one that will have its target audience, that mostly being fans of the Sonic universe, as well as families looking for something to watch and enjoy. There's a few episodes that kind of drag on and feel like they were unnecessary, but it's a pretty quick watch overall. As I said earlier, they're not very long episodes, so it doesn't take a lot of time to finish the whole series. It's not one that I would recommend to everyone, as I do think it's going to have a very specific audience. But for those that enjoyed the movies, I do think you'll enjoy this expansion of the universe as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back again with another review soon.